Vincent Wei-Cheng Wang is Associate Dean and Professor of Political Science at the University of Richmond. He joins us to discuss Taiwan-China relations in the context of Taiwan's new president taking office. Professor Wang, thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Tsai Ing-wen delivered her long-awaited inaugural address, and people listening closely around the world. What are the initial reviews at home and on the mainland?
I think it depends on whom you ask. The speech was, as you mentioned, long-awaited, and it was carefully calibrated to meet the demands or expectations of several audiences. For the domestic audience, I would say the majority of the Taiwanese people, because she won by a landslide, and they heard her saying the importance about revitalizing the economy, promoting social justice, and the young people do not have good paying job and so on. So they certainly will have very high and immediate expectation on the new government to perform perhaps very quickly. The second audience is actually across the Taiwan-Strait, namely the mainland.
The more difficult audience, perhaps.
Correct. And they're looking for her to enunciate certain words, certain magic words that will satisfy their concern about the political foundation of the cross-strait relations. And on that score, she did not fully satisfy Beijing, but she has also made many important improvements, in my opinion. For example, she talked about, rather than saying 1992 consensus, which the Chinese side interprets to mean that Taiwan and the mainland both belong to one China, and is actually anti-Taiwan independence and so on. She said that she respects the historical fact that in 1992, the two semi-official bodies from two sides have actually met and reached certain political understanding and accumulated results over the next 20 years in the spirit of mutual understanding and seeking commonality and setting aside their differences.
So as politicians often do,
Yes.
She tried to have it both ways.
Sure.
She tried to satisfy both audiences. Does that consequently lead to satisfying neither?
I think that it's hard for either the domestic audience or the external audience to give her immediate pass. In fact, China's Taiwan Affairs Office had immediately mentioned that this is like an incomplete exam sheet. But on the other hand, it's also true that what she said, which were very carefully balanced and nuanced and so on, will be very difficult for any side to take great offense. Maybe like a starting point, you know.
So showed respect for the 1992 consensus without fully embracing it.
She was respecting of the spirit of the
spirit
1992 consensus.
So how long can this go on, this neither fish nor fowl, this pursuing neither independence or unification?
I think that the next step is really the ball is in the China's court, namely that the Chinese side obviously much prefer that she explicitly embrace the 1992 consensus. In fact, their official spokesman has already mentioned that the current official and the semi-official exchanges can only continue with an explicit acceptance of the 1992 consensus. But she has also explicitly said she's not going to beat China the whole way and halfway. So is it enough for the two sides to cherish what they have accomplished in the last 20 years and try to find a new political foundation that both sides can live with?
So what is the answer to that question? How stable is it? I mean, it would be easy to be complacent because it's sort of working.
No one is actually complacent. I think that if anything, the kind of peace or lack of war in the Taiwan-Strait is not an accident. It's actually carefully nurtured. So I think that there's no urgency on any party to manufacture a crisis. So I think that the immediate crisis was diffused, if you will. However, what is more important is what next steps, subsequent steps are going to follow. If these steps contribute to increase mutual understanding and tolerance and so on, then I think it's, we can be a little bit more optimistic. However, if the subsequent steps involve putting impossible demands and fueling mutual suspicion and so on, then we could have a potential crisis in the making.
Are there particular milestones or upcoming events or things that you'll
Sure.
be watching in this regard?
I will be watching whether the so-called oversight bill in the legislative yuan. This is a bill that the Taiwanese, well, especially the DPP and the certain civil society groups, want to impose to review any agreements signed between Taiwan and the mainland. And Tsai Ing-wen has already toned down the demand by her deep green supporters to treat this as treaties between two countries, because that would really upset Beijing to no end. But then still, there are a lot of requirements, such as reviewing the bill before, during, and after. So I have some doubt about how feasible this agreement is. This is like a U.S. Congress wants to review the trade deal reached by the U.S. president before, during, and after.
Yeah.
And the U.S. president is
Not
not going to do that. Yeah.
Not practical. The role of the United States, you mentioned
Yes.
the United States. Is there a role for the United States?
Well, I think that what happened in the Taiwan-Strait in the last few months, particularly since she was elected and so on, have not called for a fundamental change in U.S. Policy. I think the U.S. policy framework remains workable, but there may be some new adjustments needed. For example, the new Taiwanese government administration may have more requests from the United States, particularly when they face increasing pressure from China. They may want the United States to provide more support, for example, to shore up their defensive capability, diplomatic support, economic support, and so on. And then the United States government, which in the last 8 years have benefited from very moderate cross-strait relations, and may not be used to a sort of a new Taiwanese administration that has heightened expectation. Whether this will actually cause some tiff between two friends remains to be seen. But on the other hand, the United States may be able to step up the plate and provide Taiwan with more support.
And a final thought, we focused on the relationship with China.
Sure.
But what other issues are on the plate for President Tsai?
I think that President Tsai understands that it is unrealistic for Taiwan to grow both domestically and regionally without a good, stable relationship with China. I think her challenge is that how to work out a political formula that will allow that very mutually beneficial relationship to continue without accepting China's political condition. I think that's her challenge. And then, of course, we should also watch out that if China becomes so dissatisfied or so disappointed by what President Tsai failed to say or deliver, that they decide to ratchet up more pressure. For example, snatching a few more diplomatic allies from Taiwan, making life really difficult for Taiwan in international organizations, and reducing the mainland tourists to Taiwan, and so on. All of these could definitely demonstrate to Taiwanese people that China has hard power, increasing hard power, but it's actually reducing China's soft power toward the Taiwanese people, because it's
creating resentment.
Yeah, the Chinese government's stated position is that they want to win the hearts and mind of Taiwanese people as precursor for unification.
Hard to do that when you're punishing
exactly,
people.
Exactly.
Well, Dean Wang, thank you very much for joining us.
You.
And I should also congratulate you on your new post at Ithaca. But really, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.